Okay. So last class we started with the convolution computation or how parallelism can be exploited in convolution. So most oftenly it is regarded as an array operation where each output data element is weighted sum of the collection of neighboring input elements. So there was an example showcasing the same aspect. So if I consider P as the output of convolution, so N is the input and M normally stated as a convolutional kernel in other textbooks or the normal convolution of any other DSP textbook as such. But we are using a kernel for a different aspect in massive parallel program processing. We are just stating it as a mask instead of a kernel, which is a normal usage of the terminology as such. Okay, so done. So how do you compute? Basically, weighted sum. What you are doing is basically whenever you are accomplishing convolution, the mask is chosen in such a manner such that there are even number of elements across the center elements. So if I say 5 is my elements, so 2 elements across the right side and 2 elements uh, at left side. So it is symmetric about the axis whenever you are considering C. And whenever you want to compute any computation of the convolution as such, what is happening is you align it. See, right now I want to compute a position for P2, so you align your mask to N2 and then appropriately multiply the elements. So 3 into 1 is 3 and 4 into 2 is 8 and so on. So finally, once you have done with respect to multiplication, then reduce that, so or summate that to on the final element for 57. That's how the convolution was implemented or showcased as such. So radius or mask radius, where you are trying to identify that central element, so that is across which, so radius is 2, right. So done. Okay. So with respect to this, if I consider this is my central element, so two elements are right and left, so that formulates how many elements exist after the central element, so that you can align that. So that is stated as a radius. So mask width is, so there are 5 elements now, that is your mask width. What you are computing, so output elements and input elements whenever you are computing, so most often you align. N can be any length as such, but if you can restrict with respect to these are the elements I want to compute, and you start aligning them whenever you are aligning. So it may happen that if you are computing this first element, say showcased a different problem statement over here. So say there can be some elements non-existent, and normally they are assumed to be zero as such, and called as a ghost elements for that matter. Okay, so if you are computing 2, so the one is existent, but this is not non-existent. Whenever you align this 5 with respect to 2, so 3 into 0, because there is no element present over there, and computation happens in that manner. That's what is called as a ghost element or the boundary alignments. Otherwise all other components can be computed whenever you align them. So what you are doing, corresponding elements are multiplied and then summate to produce the final element. This is 1D convolution, and how it was implemented. Basically, you had a global void because this function has to be called as a kernel from the host, so that the computation of individual elements happens simultaneously, even though there are multiple multiplications, and reduction has to happen. So last step, the summation has to happen. Fine. In that sense, again, we have to identify with respect to indexing, because we are dealing with the C and C indexing with respect to CUDA. So CUDA is block IDX. Whenever you are indexing, say first I will get the block number and the block dimensions, whatever the width of the block you are considering. So then individual element of that particular block, so that is with respect to thread ID x dot x, it is as good as offset, right? So that is the index, or whenever I want to point out this is the element I'm computing or something of the sort, so index I is computed in this particular fashion with respect to available block ID x and dimensions. Right now it is 1D convolution, and things are very simple for that matter. It's only x direction, y and z are treated to be ones, or there are no elements present in the other dimensions as such. So starting point, because indexing may exceed the available input points. So as you have seen with respect to radius as such, the third element left, say whenever you are computing first element of the input array, So you align mask with the first element, and the two elements are to the left, so which are to be zeros. So whenever you are similarly, whenever you are computing the last element of that input array, two elements are to the right, so are ghost elements. And whenever I say that radius point of the mask width by 2 is nothing but your radius, that's how you are computing the radius for that matter. So index you have computed, and starting point from where you start your computations for computing a convolution. So there are, as we have stated, it's iterative again. The multiplications are happening and then the additions are happening. Fine. So you are summating. What he is doing is say summation of the whatever the product of the that has computed is already stored in the p-value. New product whenever you have an index, and again multiply with the mask element. So once you multiply with the mask element, and that is added to the previous value whatever you have computed. 1 minute, somebody is coming. Okay. No. So with that sense, I have to accomplish so many multiplications, and finally the reduction. Reduction is happening iteratively with respect to this for loop passage. And with respect to the starting point, so there are so many elements, or the, if I say 8 elements or whatever the number of elements which previously has been showcased, so those elements will be computed across on every device, or how you could plan with respect to the how many threads per block and so on. And he's putting a if condition, which we stated in a normally parallel computations is not a good practice, because it may lead to divergence. So there are success stories with respect to if condition, and sad stories of the so you are not going for computation. So the same computation of the devices has to run assuming it as true and assuming it as false. So those scenarios will come up whenever you start using the for or any branch instructions. So there is a conditional check even in the for loops. J is mask less than mask width. So whenever you start accomplishing something of this sort, so what is true one cycle, and what is not true another cycle. So whenever additions happens, is not a good practice, that's what is stated. But ultimately functionality is more important, and hence we go ahead with this aspect, simplest possible as such. Whenever it is out of bound, or whenever you say that that is out of range, or it is most oftenly ghost element, anyway you have initialized p value for 0, and that gets assigned to, if you are not following this starting point, or this is not within the boundaries as such, so outside the boundaries, so p of I is directly loaded with the value of 0. So fine. The same thing is extended for 2D conversions. So now what you are doing is most often the input is larger than the conversion mask as such, and you try to align this mask with this, and um, the multiplications will yield this particular matrix. And again, whenever you summate this is yielding for a final number. So that is 3.1 or whatever the numbers. Similarly, whenever you are computing the boundary conditions, so you start assuming the ghost copies of the zeros for that matter. So whenever you're computing, so zeros are arrived, and finally you summate and weighted sum. That is your final verdict, or the conversion is accomplished. And he has showcased what is this kernel doing. Basically, whenever you add all these numbers, it comes out to be 273, and 1 by 273, the ratio of that particular representation of that pixels. So most often it looks like something similar to the, because there is a central bright pixel, and peripheries are the black pixels or something of that sort. So if you can just visualize it, it is something looks like Fourier transform, say central bright part, and it's a plus mark. Basically what you have to visualize whenever you are visualizing DCT. Last class I just gave an example of DCT kind of stuff. So that there is a bright pixel in the left corner, and black and white, so vertically, and black and white horizontally, and there are more checks patterns as you move towards the stuff. So most often DCT will have a zigzag scans or similar values across these diagonals as such. So these kind of matrices will have that nothing to do with this, because he has stated something. Can you identify this kernel is doing? So we have stated that. Fine. And now something with respect to memory. So we know convolution and how the convolution is computed, and something with respect to GPU, or the kernel calling, or the how do you define the host and the kernel code that was indicated. Now whenever you declare a variables, and there were memories you have to identify with respect to CUDA memories for that matter. One is a global memory, that is normally your DRAM cell, takes somewhere around 500 cycles, and there is registers which are within the CPU or the streaming multiprocessor or SMs, SP something, streaming processors. So you can store it, but there are very limited resources as such. And constant memory is something similar working with respect to register cycles. So whenever you say shared or the constant memories, they are taking 5 cycles. So approximately another one cycle last agli, but it is something similar to cache memory. Then how it is different from cache memory? Anybody? So shared memory, constant memory. If anybody can revert back. Yes. If no one wishes. Deepak, Shravanti, Karthik, Madhuri, Pratiksha, Prashant, Sanket, Shriti, Vivek. Anyone? Okay then. Basically, why the hierarchies are created is basically basically okay. Why it is created is so that the access is faster. Fine. So whenever we say shared memory, it is available within the block only. So whatever you want to share across the threads within a block, so that can be shared in a shared memory. If it can be accessed globally, say something like input array or the mask is required by even block 0, block 1 or any number of blocks you are creating, because the convolution mask is not changing as such. So most oftenly we are depicting or storing it in a constant memory. So if you see something which can be shared only with respect to a set of threads or in a block, so that is going into shared memory and constant memory. And what is the advantage with respect to the convolution kernel, the convolution program by itself as such is nothing is changing with respect to computations. So neither my input elements nor the convolution mask is changing. So you are computing with respect to the set of constant elements, and what are the output values are being computed. Fine. So with respect to that, runtime interprocess communication is reduced drastically, or the P1 or P2, or so there is no lesser sharing of data between processors or threads as such. So, and hence, so if possible, you store that convolution kernel and input elements in the constant memory, and all the blocks will be fetching from the same aspect as such. Why we are doing that? Basically, again, whenever we say global memory, more time or 500 cycles to load it. And whenever you are loading, so it's not a one-to-one mapping, it's a limited version mapping. So 1 TB to 4 GB or 8 GB RAM, and 8 GB RAM to some 100 MBs, and 100 MBs to some MBs of cache, and MBs to some KBs of or hundreds of registers, right? So whenever you are mapping that, there is a limited scope, and if the data gets corrupted or manipulated in the runtime, it has to be updated at all the levels. That's what is the difference, basic difference between the cache and the CUDA memories with respect to convolution. Whatever we are speaking is, if it would have been a cache, so most oftenly the processor manipulates cache directly. So most oftenly cache is regarded as tightly coupled memory, or the memory that is closely associated with the processor. If processor 2 or thread 2 is also using the same data, then it would have been a trouble or problem for that. So you have to convey it has been corrupted, or it has to be read the updated value. And there were two algorithms for that matter, write back and write through, having their own advantages and disadvantages, as well as some memory architectures that were required for microarchitectures, whatever we stated, so that memory gets updated either by write back or write through approaches. Okay, so that is not seen in CUDA memory with respect to convolution kernel, because as we have stated, both the input as well as the convolution mask are not changing. So whatever are constants, so you can keep them and go on computing the output elements as such. So memory hierarchies is stated about caches and okay, what is the difference between cache and shared memory and constant memory? That's what is followed in these slides as such. So normally cache access is, as we have stated, it is not a single byte. I am going for that. Whenever you are going for that, it is in terms of exchange of currencies. So minimum some common element has to be exchanged. So it may be 128 bytes or what 512 KB. So there is some block size fixed. So that's a minimum currency that you have to exchange. Similarly, whenever cache lines are to be replaced, so whatever I want is ready, not ready available in my cache now, that has to be fetched from the lower orders of memory. So whenever that happens, you are fetching in terms of blocks. So that blocks have to exploit the consistency of the in terms of temporal and spatial. Temporal is you are repetitively using the same elements, or the elements are, which are continuous, or neighbors are also useful. Something of that sort has to be visualized whenever you are going for a cache replacement. So how do you replace cache line? Basically, least recently used, whatever is not more prominently used, that can be replaced. Say spatial, locality, and temporality. That's what is being accessed. So spatial, you are using x plus one, x plus two, or the all the neighbors. So temporal, you are using x again. So that speaks about repetitive usage as well as neighbor usage. So last recently used or least recently used. Then shared memory versus cache. Shared memory is in CUDA, and most oftenly all the threads in that particular block can access that. So most oftenly you are not supposed to manipulate anything on that. So cache gives you a permission because there is a hidden microarchitecture, so that it updates whatever the current value, or there are additional bits stating it is dirty, valid, or exclusively owned by some processor, and so on. Okay. Put a copy of data that is also in memory. So because cache has a copies of data, or the called as at different levels. So there is a terminology used as a coherency or cache coherency. So all the elements should be unique, or all the copies are same. So it doesn't mean that at processor level the value is different, and at RAM level it is different, and so on. It should not be there, and that will not happen in CUDA, or we are not supposed to make that happen in CUDA, because most often we are using constants in the shared memory, or whatever are concerned with respect to particular block. So microarchitecture cache ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಅದು ಅಪ್ಡೇಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತದೆ, ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಅವಶ್ಯಕತೆ ಬರುವುದಿಲ್ಲ. Then constant cache in GPUs, fine. So constants are most oftenly whenever you are declaring them, you have to be aware of life and scope of a variable. So normally whatever we are taught in C as such. So I want a variable to be alive for almost all the time. So then you declare it as a global variable. Otherwise, what happens is, say inside the function you are declaring that is local to that particular function. So whenever that function vanishes, it dies out. So still you want to that variable computation to be available, then you may declare something as a static. So or you make it available over the heap, calling it as a global. The same approaches will hold good in GPUs. Most often constant is the memory, which is almost having similar delay as of shared memory. Then what is the advantage of constant memory or texture memory? Sometimes in other textbooks on the whenever you are considering say base of a GPU, so there was a vertexing, texture loading, and something of the sort, frame wise processing. So then the entire frame of texture was being stored as a in texture memory. With respect to that, they are stating that otherwise, to be very simple for that matter, the constant memory is a symbolic memory where you are loading the symbols of the constants into the constant memory. So can be accessed by different blocks, but across blocks also they are uniform or same. So that is what is to be conveyed. Okay, then how to use a constant memory? So you have to use a construct called as double underscore constant underscore, and whatever you want to store in constant memory. So you are using CUDA mem copy to symbol DSD, SRC, and so on. It is something similar to your cross compiler, ಯಾವ್ದದು ನಿಮ್ಮ 8051 or something of this, if you have used that. So there were variables whenever you declare int, float, char, or whatever the variables you are declaring, and your intention is to store them to specific memories. Say something I want in a bit addressable memory locations. So then I say b data int I x y z, whatever you can call that. So b data is a constructor which works with this bit fields, and then make sure that whatever the data you have allocated, that's the job of compiler. Similarly, whenever you say underscore constant underscores and declare that particular variable, that compiler foresees it that variable has to be stored in the, or there should be some memory allocation. Basically what that is doing is it reserves that memory space, but whenever you call this API CUDA mem copy to symbols, so now the symbols are copied from source to destination with respect to whatever the sizes. So something similar to CUDA malloc, CUDA calloc. But now what is happening is you are storing it to a specific location. So the shared memory location, hack byte, that's your. Uh, so you want to add it to constant memory, then it is what is being done. Okay. So there is again one more word if you want to put it in shared. So double underscore shared, then make it happen. So that is going to shared memory. Coda mem copy to symbol. So the syntax, and this is a kernel calling as we have stated, triple angular brackets and the dimension of a block. So then parameters whatever you want to pass on to the so that they can be captured at MC mask and other structures. Okay. So this was with respect to a previous class as such. Net ಇದೆ ಅಲ್ರಿಪಾ? Hello. I hope I'm connected.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Now, something similar to the matrix multiplication, tiled matrix multiplication. Say, what we want to achieve is basically the computation. Yes, you planned across devices. There are n devices, or with respect to CUDA and get device details. You can get how many blocks and how many threads per block. So all that you can bargain and fix up some numbers so that the computation can be parallelized across those SPs or streaming processors and SMs, streaming multiprocessors. Whenever that is happening, you are targeting only the functional part of the computation part as such. But computation has to happen with respect to operands, and how do you make sure that you are not speaking very openly with respect to global memory, so that 500 cycles whenever you access something, 500 cycles, and most oftenly you are accessing in terms of burst or block size, so that multiple elements you are reading, so you want to avoid that costlier affair. So how do you plan that? So that whenever you fetch the elements, so most oftenly they are repetitively used. That is what is the target of tiled or the convolution or any other scientific computations. So even matrix multiplications. So we'll be looking at the intricate aspects of tiling. So output tiles versus input tiles. So how many input tile or how many elements in the input tiles or how many output elements, and how mask interacts with the input tile so that it is able to produce output tiles. In that, how many elements are used? How do I enhance the number of reused elements and hence achieve a so by reducing the memory access, the efficiency of the performance of the entire computation has been enhanced. Okay. Now, so consider this 1D convolution. P is elements to be produced. So most oftenly the P tile size is considered as 4. So whenever you see this larger marks for that matter, 0, 1, 2, 3 is one tile, 4, 5, 6, 7 is another tile, and so on. So n is the number of input elements. So whenever you are considering the n elements, and for computation again the mask size, whatever is not stated in this particular slide, is considered to be 5, because you have considered output tile is 4, input is also considered as a 4, and the radius was computed as okay, was 2, and the last again, when how do you compute is, I mean, just for the sake of simplicity I will just show you as a instance. Okay. So mask width is the input mask, so 8, mask size we are considering given for that example 5 minus 1. So for this 4 elements plus 5 minus 1, 4, 4 plus 4 is 8 elements of input are considered in the case here. 4, so mask size, the size is 4 plus 5 minus mask, mask size is 5, 5 minus 1, 4, 4 plus 4 is 8. So total of 8 elements of inputs are considered whenever you are going for a computation. So whenever you consider this element and you want to compute the convolution, so that you want to align this with respect to the first tile, so there are additional elements required as with respect to radius. So these are ghost elements, and sometimes he also starts using halo elements. So what are halo elements and what are ghost elements? Is ghost elements are not existent or inexistent for that matter, and you assume zeros over there. Halo elements are there which are repetitively used across tiles. So 4 and 5 is also available over here, 4 and 5 is also available over here, or 12 and 13 whenever you look into this. So across tiles, whatever the elements are available, they are called as a halo elements. So this is how the computation looks like, or the basic structure. Say P is number of elements divided into 4, N is also divided in terms of 4 elements for that matter, but the convolution mask size is 5. So what shall be parallels? What should be one thread to? Same as vector sum or matrix multiplication. So you multiply the corresponding elements and reduce into single element. So most often you are choosing summation for that. Okay. So again, whenever you consider that, you compute. Say, if I see this is my input element, and there can be weighted uh, things. So these arrows are not simple multiplications. So whatever the multiplications that is happening, one, two, say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 elements, and you are producing one element over there. So maybe if it is not available, then it is called as a ghost element. If it is overlapped in between, so then it is shared across two tiles, that is called as a halo element. Okay, that should be sufficient. So the number of inputs, and you are fixing with respect to output tie width. Okay, how much reuse is possible? So if the mask size as 5, so this element used only once. So because whenever you are computing that, so it's a boundary condition, it is used only once, and 3 is used twice while computing 4 and 5. Then similarly 4 is used thrice. Or you see something like a Gaussian curve, the usage of element increases in the mid. So whenever you draw this, there is a central peak for the 4, 5, 6, or whenever you say that 5 and 6 are at peak. So this is my Gaussian peak, and both the ends it decreases. So the utility of the elements being utilized is decreasing. So anyway, we want to increase this portion of the maximum utilization for that matter. Whenever you load that elements, so if you are storing either constant or shared memory, so the global access for these elements is reduced drastically, and hence of performance can be enhanced. So in the 8th lecture and 9th lecture, we are targeting so the analysis. So how much speed we have achieved, or how much speed can be achieved whenever you start using the tiles, and what should be the tile sizes, so that optimal usage can be done. So in other words, do we also copy halos into the shared memory? So halos is nothing like, as we have stated, the elements exist, so they are shared across different tiles as such. So normally threads have to read the halo values directly from global memory. There are again three approaches they are being discussed. Either you coalesce memory, or you compute it and neglect the boundary conditions of whatever comes after the normal expected P elements. We will see to it that there are three approaches basically. How do you deal with respect to halo elements and branch divergence? Yes, they invariably exist, because you have to check whether that belongs to the input or output tiles, or it's outside the boundaries of any tiles for that matter. Fine. So can load shared memory. Advantage: coalesce global memory access, no branch divergence. If you are loading into a shared memory, it is some threads must do greater than one load. So some branch divergence in reading, so you can have more reads for that matter, and more number of basically the memory constraints. Again, shared memory is limited, as in case of maybe whenever you size, maybe it is in terms of some kbs. Okay, so there are three tiling strategies as we have stated. Whenever you're choosing a input tile, so input tile can be large enough, so it covers the output. So, and there are some halo elements. Step 1 and step 3 are halo elements, and whenever I load this, so multiple steps to load the input tiles. Step 1, you load the halo elements, then entire output whatever it is overlap, so that is being loaded. And step 3, again you load the halo elements at the other end, so left and right, with one approach. The other approach is you load the input, and block size converts the output tile. Load only core of the input tiles, so access elements in the global memory. So don't put them to shared memory, and you can directly access from the global memory. assuming that the number of elements are lesser. Yeah, why they might have thought of that. Otherwise, you will load entire halo elements and outputs. So all the elements are loaded simultaneously as input. So block size is of course input tile. Load input tile into one step. Turn off some threads when calculating outputs. So whenever these halo elements or these computations are not required, so only these elements are of interest. So currently at current execution or whatever the block or thread, whatever you're considering, so you can just shut off whatever the computations that are, you compute them or just discard the results for that matter, right? So variable meanings of a block. So I is either thread and p is the output elements. N is the number of input elements. So left halo and right halo represent either overlapped elements or zeros or ghost copies for that matter. How many of them are available? So that is with respect to radius, as we have stated. Fine. Mask width divided by 2. So pi divided by 2 is 2. So because you are computing in terms of integers, right? Now loading left halo whenever you are computing this particular block. So radius mask width divided by 2, halo index left. So you are want to access from here. So this is a boundary condition. Block idx minus 1, so that then block dimension x plus thread idx. Whenever you start, I just want to point this with respect to this element, and this starts over here, and one element lesser than that. Okay. Once you have this, so halo index comes if thread idx is greater than block idx radius. So whether it is outside or it is halo element or the ghost copies, that's what you are computing. You load either 0 or halo index left. If the element is available, you are loading that. Okay. Then similarly the internal elements you load as within one blocks. It is well within the width or the tile width, whatever 4 here is considered block idx. So you are not going left, and so with respect to dimensions and individual blocks are 6 whenever you want to compute that particular element that is pointed by thread idx dot x. So it is less than that. Now that can be loaded. So now you compute whatever you want to compute. Basically n123, you are loading all the required elements as input vector. NDS is being loaded. Otherwise it's a boundary condition, then you load it with the floating point representation. So is just loading 0 to be stating that, but 0.0 f states that he wants to load them that as a okay, floating point operation, right? So right halo again similar to that. Now there was a -1, now it is a +1 because yak so radius is 2 with respect to that you are computing that, and it is well within the radius, and again load 0 if it is a ghost copy, and if it is valid then load the particular elements, and combining all these aspects the strategy 1 code is being depicted. So global wide conversion, and these are the parameters that are to be passed. So n is input, p is output vector, and mask width your the number what is the mask width, and the tile width is the width whatever is catered. How do you compute an index with respect to C as such? So block idx, block dimension, thread idx are with respect to the CUDA. So they are treating with respect to particular block access as such. A global index is int I. So that's how it is computed, is block idx dot x into block dimension dot x. So individual element within that particular block is idx. Okay. NDS or whatever is shared, I want to put this NDS as a shared or in the shared memory, and hence a keyword double underscore shared double underscore, and it is of type of float. So that is being loaded, or basically you are allocating a memory. So whenever you are stating this, so this size the pointer for NDS is reserved with respect to so many elements with whatever the float size into float size of float, right? So once it is done, you load the halo elements with respect to left and right, and finally sync threads. And what is the computation you want to accomplish? So basically, reduction with respect to repetitive multiplication. That is what is being computed with respect to mask width. And sync threads is a barrier synchronization that is accomplished, so that after all this have been computed, after this function, then only you can attempt to go for, that means NDS is completely loaded with all the ghost and halo elements, and then only I can accomplish the p-value computations. So initially p-value is 0, and with respect to across devices. So that's whenever you call with respect to host code in the Kartaka, so then what is happening is basically every device is computing one element of a convolution, to be very simple as such. So because we are not giving any numbers over here, as in earlier examples of the previous class, we were stating that block 0, block 1, or and so on, right? Alternative implementation, variable meaning of block. So is here, that is you are stating with respect to output elements, not with respect to input elements. So starts here I minus something. So well, before I there were some elements with respect to output, there should be some elements inside the input. NDS holds a copy. Okay, you are having that overlapped copies over there. So whenever you are loading the copied elements or the halo elements and the corresponding elements. So how do you load that? So the pictorial representation and the stuff. So two elements I on the output, if I am considering this, two elements of this has to be loaded. So start is I minus radius. So as we have stated, radius is 2. That's how it comes out to be. If start is greater than, so you have indexed it, it should be greater than 0. That is with respect to global indexing whenever you are stating that. And width is greater than start, so tile indexing, so you are well within the boundaries. Then you are loading the values of elements of the input in the, so you are creating that NDS for computations, sorry, input tile for computation, fine. So this was output tile, this is input tile. So then again load the input data steps 2. So at the other end, so left hand compute multiples. If you can recollect the previous strategy of loading halo elements and computing all at once and discarding the output results at the other end. So there are three strategies. So this is second strategy. So you are computing, so loading these halo elements and then accomplishing a task. Okay, I just don't want to read the code as such. Please make sure that I have shared the entire slides, and any doubts you can discuss. But the rough idea is, so you are loading the left elements, then right elements or the overlapped elements along with the remaining numbers as such. Once you are accomplishing that, so once everything is been loaded, you make a sync threads. So after sync threads, you call the same kernel, or the basically what it was to compute that one dimensional conversion as such. Still we are into one dimensional conversions, whatever we are dealing with. Okay, so what shall we parallelize? What should one thread do? Same as the vector sum. Okay, loading of a tile can be parallelized. Each thread loads one input element and some threads compute an output. No branch divergence, again he is stating the same, because everything can be loaded at once. So NDS on the total input tell one this load, so that's what is stating. Branch divergence for computing low latency. Whenever you look into that code, see if there are if conditions, whenever they occur, they normally hamper, or whenever there is a decision making, the parallelization cannot happen over there with respect to decisions. So decisions are normally sequential or the serial approaches as such. So avoid narrow global access. What is he stating is he is loading entire stuff at once. So not loading the left halo elements, then center tile elements, or the with respect to output tiles. If your output tile is covered or not, that's what is being stated basically. Output tile is being covered with respect to input along with the halo elements. Okay. So thread block mentions input tile size, and each thread loads one element of input tile. Some threads do not participate in the calculating output, so they may not. and suddenly he's bringing with respect to the um, 2D approach, so tile width and mask width. Now it's square, so whenever you are indexing, just note the indexing column 0 or the row 0 is basically block IDX into the tile width. Now it is normally it would have been a block dimensions or the block dimension direct x. So because you are considering the block dimension as tile width, and the tile width whatever you are considering is being loaded, and individual thread whenever you want to access that is done by that offset thread IDX dot x, right? Similarly, row identification is happening in the y direction, so which row element. So these are your xy coordinates for global access as such. What is the requirement? Input file or input is covering the output tile. So if you can recollect again, I have to go back to the earlier slides. So where we are saying that output tile is encapsulated or covered by the input tiles, or output tile is smaller than the input tiles. So whenever you are computing, setting the block dimensions again with respect to whatever the block size you have chosen. So dimensions are set, tile width plus 4 and 1. Ultimately this is the standard formula. You have to remember tile width plus mask width minus 1. And this is the overall number of input elements that are being loaded into the shared memory as such. Okay. Shifting from output coordinates to input coordinates, how it happens is basically you align it centerwise. So 4 elements ಯಾಕೆ ಅಂತ ಕೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, again vertical direction 2 elements and horizontal direction 2 elements, then hence plus 4 plus 4, so that output tile is smaller, or you have enhanced input tile by plus 4. So 2 elements over here, 2 elements over here. That's how the indexing has been showcased. Okay, so that it is center and is fully encapsulated by the input type. Again, how do you compute the indexing? So tx ty as offsets are the with respect to x and y directions, and block idx with respect to tile size. The global index with respect to row and column is output tile. Row underscore 0 is output tile, row underscore I is your input tile. Okay. Row, okay, because you have to align it. He's going for a radius for that matter. 2 is a radius, so and hence 2 both sides are 4 elements. Outside chain should return 0 0, or you are making them to return a ghost values. So taking care of boundaries, so whether your elements, whenever we are saying that if or whatever we have stated, there was a divergence, and that happens with respect to whenever you start checking the conditions. The condition is true, a condition is false. How the code executes is code executes twice for that matter. So once for true values of these whatever the conditions, once for false values of the conditions, and false values are not required for you, but and hence really you are assigning 0, so okay, it is required. So that's how 2 iterations of minimum were required to accomplish this. So because output tile is smaller, that's how you planned entire computations. So all the threads, all the outputs are not required, so there are some blanks, so are the things that can be discarded. So how to discard? So you compute whether it is less than tile width or well within the boundaries. If it is not, then right. So you can write the output, but you can discard the stuff ultimately after finishing off. So next class again we'll look into the same aspect, but now what we have achieved whenever we have followed these 3 approaches. Again, when I will repeat that entire stuff. So basically these are 3 approaches. So my output is smaller, or my input is equal to this, but I am accomplishing the memory reads in 3 steps. So left elements once, input elements which are equal to the output, then right hello or ghost elements, or you directly want to access. Now they are being put into the shared memories. Now you want to access them directly from the global memory. You do the stuff, so load entire input once, but maybe you are computing, you are writing the results, but you are discarding the results, so because they are outside the output time as such. So this is the strategy 2. So strategy 3 is So maybe that amount is very much less. And whenever you compare these three approaches, if the numbers ultimately engineering boils down to the numbers, so how much efficiency you have achieved in these three. So if accessing global memory or discarding results takes same amount of time, then maybe I can use the shared memory for some other purpose, maybe. So then because the amount of exercise or what is that, CGMA, compute versus global memory access, that's what we want to maximize. We want to have more computations or more parallel executions rather than the more memory speaking or memory communications as such. So that can be discussed in the next class. So any doubts, again, please put it onto the classroom. Other than that, as I stated, so whatever I am learning and again teaching is from the WhenMe classrooms, maybe 2021, I think, 21 to 23.
If
These
we
are
look
the
at the scans,
so
we
around.
execute lock-in
Okay.
parallel iteration.
So I think so from 3.1. Okay. So ಇಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಅಂದ್ರೆ parallel computation patterns, maybe 3.3 here onwards. So 19, 20, 21, 22. So 23 we have covered it already in the other chapter, but anyway he's repeating that it is summation, maximization, and maximum minima, or basically reduction operation he's stating. Until here, say 23rd, and this is also convolution. No, work efficient scan is next chapter. So up to 24, I think. Say 19 to 24 are the things whatever we are dealing right now with respect to 1D or convolution for that matter. So prefix scanning is next chapter again, with respect to textbooks or unit wise. All the parallel computation patterns, say maybe it is a space matrix or the convolution of the scan prefix arrays, so all are covered in one chapter or one unit in the syllabus as such, but there are 4 chapters that are to be covered. So approximately 3 hours per segregation as such, convolution even more so then space matrix 3 hours and so on. So any doubts, if you can go through these lectures, and next class if you have any doubts or any ambiguity with respect to explanations, you can revert back. Okay, so shall we close now? Okay then, thank you.